I am a quantitative scholar by Cindy's standards, and a qualitative scholar by Michael's standards. So, and I just want to make that really clear because I'm talking about a topic that in some ways is it's not typical to quantify it. But I've chosen to try. And the reason is I'm an organizational sociologist primarily, but I'm very interested in culture, in school culture. And in particular, I am not a leadership scholar, although I have tended to be thought of that way. But I have a whole lot of data right now that actually looks at how do teachers experience their principal in their schools. So I've wanted to mine through a lot of that data to see what we can find out about adult relationships in schools, because I know enough from both my truly quantitative and my truly qualitative data that adult relationships matter. And this is really, it's been an important shift that's been happening over the last decade. Up until that time, we really thought, it was the way in which adults related to children was the only thing that mattered. But we now, I think, can say pretty convincingly that it matters how adults work with each other, and that has implications for the experiences that children will have. So I'm just going to be really quick here, because I've moved from thinking about, just in this particular, this is a line of work that I've been carrying out with two colleagues who are not from the university. One is Joe Murphy, who's from Vanderbilt, and the other one is Mark Smiley, who is currently emeritus from the University of Illinois in Chicago. And we just ended up thinking about what is it about the quality of schools as caring organizations. We know a lot from educational philosophy and Nell Noddings about the importance of caring in that relationship between a teacher and a student. But we don't know very much about how it might affect adults. So that's where we started. And so we have a lot of theory, and the reason I'm coming to the end of a line of published research, Smiley, Murphy, and Lewis covers our effort to look at what does caring mean in other professions. Education is not the only profession that purports to care. So we said, and yet we have there's very little in education. There's a lot in nursing. There's a lot in social work. So we wanted to go through that and say, well, how do other people think about that? Then how can we bring that into the field that we've chosen? And so you can get that. It's in the journal, American Journal of Education. Just came out, but I can send anybody who's interested a copy. But our assumption is that we have really been off in our policy and our reform efforts for the last number of years, because we focused on teacher professionalism in a very narrow kind of way. They got to be better skilled to be instructional. They've got to have more knowledge. They have to have higher levels of certification. That's where all the policy work is going. And in fact, I will have to tell you, it started with teacher education. Michigan State University, somewhere in the 1980s, I can find you the date. But it started with us, and now it's just embedded in the way everybody thinks about it. And we've narrowed a lot of the ways in which teachers have agency on their own that way. So I do a lot of work in other countries, and it hasn't happened to the same extent in other countries as it has here, with the exception of England. And we tend to look at England because they speak the same language more or less, and it is crazy there. Don't read anything from England and think we ought to learn anything, but I'm really serious. And I'd be happy to have a discussion with you. But I want to talk about what caring is. First of all, it's very, very ambiguous. You look at all this literature we've been looking at. There are so many different ways of thinking about it. But we have to think, then we said we need to think about how would it be experienced? Not how is it philosophically defined. And we said that there's some really important features it has in common. It means paying attention. That's what Cindy was talking about, paying attention. I actually learned that from her. We need to have some authentic understanding of other people. And again, that comes out in the work that she did with the circle process. It has to be for the benefit of others. We have to not be in it, be saying, transaction says, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Caring by its very nature is not, I'll care for you now and then you can come and bring me, deliver a hot dish to me when I'm sick. It's not that. So we have these other things that there's also, you have to be very attentive to the situation. Caring for you today might not be the same thing as caring for you in 2 weeks. So there are all these characteristics that come out if you look at this literature. But it has an important social function. When you're in caring organization, there's a research behind this. When you are in a situation where caring is culturally a feature of the organization, you're more likely to create more opportunities for caring that are go on in that organization, but also in other contexts. So it changes people and organizations. So what we did was we decided we're going to focus on school leaders, which is very rare in education. Mostly we talk about teachers. And we're going to talk about organizations. So I'm just saying, we have some really, these are post hoc measures. I mean, I was interested in this when we started our study, but we were able to map some of the items that I have from surveys of 3,000 school teachers, random, well, it's a weird sample, but it's a national sample. And you can read about this in the research that I have published, but we were able to map them onto some of these characteristics that we found in the literature from social work, nursing, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to say, we have some findings here. You can read. But the important thing is that when teachers view their principals as more caring about them and about teachers in general, they have a higher sense of what we call collective responsibility for student learning. We work on this together. This isn't something I do in my classroom. That's very important because it's very strongly associated in my work, but also that of other people with student achievement. In schools that have that, students are more likely to feel there's support for them wherever they are in the school. So it's also more likely to focus on supporting students, and in particular, supporting students in a way that is consistent with our ideas of social justice. The students who need it most get the most. Every student has likely to get the best teachers in this school, because we all know that that's not the case in most schools, is it? In fact, in our sample, over 40% of the secondary school teachers say that their students do not have an equal chance of getting the best teachers. Yes, teachers are willing to tell us the ugly, dark side of their profession if you ask them anonymously. We do have some evidence here. So I have path analyses. They're not real structural equation models, but we find that principal caring, as perceived by teachers, is associated with these things, and it's also associated with achievement. So how is it associated with achievement? Schools where teachers say, yes, we have this more equitable responsibility for supporting students, are the schools where students are more likely to have high achievement. So caring by the principal, he could love to have students in his office. I know. I'm done.
Sorry.
It's okay. But the other thing is there's another piece to caring, and that's trust. And in schools where principals trust that their teachers are competent and teachers perceive the principal as caring, you get kind of a double whammy here. Now, principals' belief that the teachers are competent also strongly helps to reinforce this sense of social justice, this equitable focus, this collective responsibility, the willingness to work together. So there's something going on here so that trust is not just warm, fuzzy feelings. It has something to do with, I believe that you not only want to do the best, but that you're able to do the best. So I'm not saying in this that we should move back from being concerned about teachers' competence and the quality of teachers and so on. What I'm saying is you also need to balance this with something that's called the socio-emotional context for adults in a school, because if you don't have that, you're not going to get what you want for students. And that has to do primarily with the outcome of organizational learning. We have 3 published articles, and I would be happy to share them with anybody.